Ladies and gentlemen, history is not made by those who sit quietly in the shadows. History is made by those who dare to act, by those who take one decisive step that changes the balance of power forever. Nations, like individuals, are often tested by a single move, a move that defines their courage, their vision, and their destiny. When we talk about the complex ties between India and the United States, we must understand that sometimes one decision, one bold act, can transform decades of cooperation into moments of tension, and it is in these moments of struggle that true strength is revealed. Today, I want to take you on a journey through power, through strategy, through the lessons of leadership that emerge from that one move which shook the very foundation of India-US relations, because, just like in life, the rise of nations is not about avoiding challenges. It's about facing them head-on, learning, growing, and emerging stronger. Every journey of greatness begins with one decision, one choice that changes everything. When we look at the story of India rising on the world stage, there comes a moment where hesitation had no place, where compromise would have meant weakness, and where boldness was the only answer. This is the essence of power, the ability to act even when the whole world is watching, even when criticism is guaranteed, and even when the price of action will be heavy. But history does not reward those who play it safe. History rewards those who take decisive action. Think about the leaders who left their mark on humanity, not just in politics, but in every field. They were not remembered because they followed the rules that others had set. They were remembered because they made bold moves when it mattered most. For India, standing at a crossroads between compliance and sovereignty, the choice was clear. Remain a follower in the global order, or carve a path of independence that would send a message of strength to every nation. That decision, the one move, was a declaration that India would never be dictated to, never be controlled, and never be reduced to a silent player in international politics. A bold decision is never comfortable. It is never easy. It comes with fear, with uncertainty, with the knowledge that powerful opposition will rise against you. But this is what separates true leaders from pretenders. Anyone can make choices when life is smooth, when opportunities come without risk. But to act with courage when the stakes are high, when the consequences are global, that is the mark of greatness. India chose to demonstrate that it was not afraid of the storm. In fact, it was ready to step into the storm, to withstand the winds, and to emerge stronger on the other side. Now let us ask ourselves, why is boldness so rare? Because most people are paralyzed by doubt. Nations too, just like individuals, hesitate because they want to avoid conflict. They fear the criticism of others. They want the approval of those who already hold power, but here lies the greatest lesson. You cannot rise to the top while asking permission from those already sitting there. Power is never handed over politely, it is claimed with determination. India's decision may have seemed like defiance to some, but it was in truth an act of self-respect, the ultimate reminder that no nation achieves greatness by bowing its head. When you look back at that turning point in India's story, what you see is the reflection of every human struggle. Every one of us faces moments where a choice must be made. Play small and stay safe, or step forward and embrace risk. And just like India, we discover that the world may not applaud right away. In fact, at first, the world may punish you. But time has a way of proving who was right, because boldness builds credibility and courage earns respect, even from your rivals. This is not just politics, this is life. If you want to be remembered, you cannot hide in the shadows of comfort. If you want to lead, you cannot wait for approval. You must act boldly. You must decide when the moment comes, and you must never doubt that one bold step has the power to change the course of history. India's decision, that one move that shattered relations with a superpower, was exactly this kind of act. It was not about destroying friendship. It was about building dignity. It was not about defiance for its own sake. It was about declaring, we are strong enough to decide our own destiny. That is the true power of bold decisions. They shape the future, not just for one generation, but for all that follow. In the arena of international politics, there are no permanent allies and no eternal enemies. There is only one constant, the pursuit of national interest. This truth may sound cold, but it is the foundation upon which every nation survives. For India and the United States, their paths crossed in cooperation many times, aligning when it served their respective goals. Yet, when India made a move to assert its sovereignty, that alignment fractured because the core interests of both nations collided. What seemed like friendship suddenly turned into suspicion. What seemed like partnership was tested by rivalry. But this moment of conflict reveals a timeless lesson for all of us. You cannot shape your destiny by constantly trying to satisfy others, because when your values and interests are at stake, compromise means surrender. Nations, like individuals, are often tempted to play it safe. It feels easier to adjust, to bend, to remain in harmony with stronger powers rather than risk confrontation. But safety rarely leads to greatness. India understood that, when its interests clashed with the strategic designs of America, it chose to prioritize sovereignty over convenience. That decision may have appeared reckless to some, but it was in reality the most rational choice. Because no nation, no matter how large or small, can afford to let another dictate its core values, its independence, or its right to determine its future. To bend on such matters is to forfeit dignity, and dignity once lost is almost impossible to regain. Think of it like life itself. Imagine a person who spends their years trying to please everyone around them, family, friends, colleagues. They become trapped, pulled in different directions, unable to live authentically. Eventually, they discover the painful truth: you cannot please everyone, and in the process of trying, you lose yourself. Nations operate under the same principle. India's choice to stand firm was not just a message to America. It was a message to the world, and more importantly, to itself. It was a declaration that its national interest would not be compromised, regardless of external pressure. Of course, this choice did not come without consequences. The clash of interests brought immediate tension, diplomatic strain, and even punishment. But let us remember, it is in conflict that respect is forged. A superpower may dislike defiance, but it cannot ignore it. Strength always commands recognition, even from rivals. And in the long run, standing firm builds a foundation for more equal relationships, because the world begins to understand that you are not a pawn on someone else's chessboard. You are a player in your own right. This lesson extends beyond nations. Every person listening must recognize that life's turning points often arrive when your interests collide with the expectations of others. Your employer may want you to sacrifice your principles for short-term gains. Society may pressure you to follow paths that go against your convictions. Friends or family may expect you to abandon your dreams for their comfort. But at that moment, you must remember the example of India: choose your path, not theirs. Because if you live trying to satisfy others, you will be respected by no one, least of all yourself. India's bold move that unsettled its relations with America is proof that true strength comes not from harmony at all costs, but from integrity when it counts. The world does not admire those who bow to pressure, it admires those who remain unshaken. Yes, this decision created distance in the short term, but it also established something far more important: the understanding that India could not be controlled, that it was prepared to face friction if it meant preserving its independence. That is why this clash of national interests matters so much. It teaches us that sometimes conflict is not a sign of weakness, but of strength. It is not always something to avoid, but something to endure, because only through it can you carve a place of true respect in the world. And in the end, whether in diplomacy or in life, those who stand firm in the face of opposition, those who refuse to compromise their deepest interests, are the ones who rise the highest. Strength in every form comes with a price. It is never free. For a nation, just as for an individual, the pursuit of independence demands sacrifice, and those who believe they can achieve greatness without paying that price are only chasing illusions. When India made its bold move, the world reacted harshly. Sanctions were imposed, criticism poured in, and a sense of isolation surrounded the country. To many, this might have looked like punishment, like a setback, like proof that standing tall had brought only trouble. But in truth, this was the cost of independence, the unavoidable toll that every nation must pay when it chooses to chart its own destiny rather than follow the path set by others. If you study history, you will find that no great power rose without facing resistance. Every revolution, every transformation came with obstacles that tested resolve. The American Revolution, for instance, was not won with ease. It was a struggle against one of the mightiest empires of its time. The freedom movements across the world, from Asia to Africa, were marked with suffering, sacrifice, and loss. But without paying that price, none of those nations would have earned sovereignty. India was no different. Its decision that shattered relations with the United States was not about choosing the easy road. It was about accepting the burdens that come with standing alone. Now think about this principle in personal terms. Imagine a bodybuilder who walks into the gym expecting to grow strong without ever feeling pain, without lifting heavy weights, without breaking a sweat. Such a person would never grow. Muscles are built by tearing fibers, by enduring soreness, by going through discomfort. It is the very resistance of the weight that forces the body to adapt and become stronger. Nations operate the same way. When pressure is applied, whether through sanctions, isolation, or external hostility, it forces a country to find resilience, to innovate, to develop internal strength that would never have been discovered otherwise. India's path after its decisive move was tough, but it was transformative. By choosing independence over compliance, it proved that real freedom does not come with applause. It comes with endurance. When the world turned critical, India did not collapse. Instead, it learned to rely more on itself, to strengthen its own capabilities, and to move forward regardless of who stood against it. And in time, the very nations that had criticized and punished India came to respect it, not because it had begged for approval, but because it had proven it could stand on its own feet. Respect is not given freely, it is earned through struggle. This is the heart of the lesson. Freedom without sacrifice is an illusion. Too many people in life want the benefits of independence without the burdens of responsibility. They want to lead but avoid the weight of leadership. They want success but shrink from the pain of discipline. That is not how greatness is achieved. Whether it is a nation trying to establish sovereignty or an individual striving for personal goals, the principle remains the same. You must be willing to pay the price. So, when India bore the brunt of global pressure after its bold act, it was not a sign of weakness, it was a badge of honor. It demonstrated that independence had real meaning, that the nation valued its dignity more than temporary comfort. And the world, even if reluctantly, began to understand that here was a country that would not be broken by external pressure. In the end, the price of independence is steep, but it is the only currency that buys true sovereignty. Those who avoid paying it remain forever dependent, forever vulnerable, forever at the mercy of others. Those who accept it, who embrace the sacrifice, stand tall in the storms of history. India's story is proof that the path of strength is never the easy one, but it is always the right one. One move does not exist in isolation. A single act, especially in the world of geopolitics, carries consequences that stretch far beyond the immediate. When India made its decisive move that unsettled its relationship with the United States, the world was watching, and as the ripples spread, it became clear that this was not just about two nations clashing. It was about the global order being shaken, about other powers recalculating their strategies, and about the undeniable truth that one nation's courage can force others to rethink their own positions. That is the true weight of boldness. It does not remain confined to the moment, it reshapes the environment around it. Imagine a stone dropped into a still pond. The ripples move outward, touching every part of the water long after the stone has sunk. This is what India's move represented. Countries across Asia, Europe, and beyond looked at the decision and asked themselves, if India can stand firm against the world's leading superpower, what does that mean for us? It altered equations, created new opportunities, and disrupted established expectations. Suddenly, global powers who thought they could dictate terms were forced to acknowledge that the balance was shifting. Even nations that disagreed with India recognized one thing clearly: this was not a country that could be ignored or bullied into submission. This ripple effect teaches us an important principle of leadership and life. Your actions are never just about you. Every decision you make, every stand you take, sends signals to the people around you. If you show strength, others will treat you with respect. If you show weakness, others will exploit it. India's decision echoed far beyond its borders because it demonstrated a level of courage that others had to acknowledge. And in the long run, even adversaries respect boldness. They may resist it, they may criticize it, but deep down they cannot dismiss it. Another layer to this ripple effect was the way it inspired self-reflection in other nations. Smaller countries, often caught between the interests of larger powers, saw in India's stance a model of resistance and self-determination. It showed them that standing up for national interest is possible, even when the odds seem stacked against you. It reminded them that dignity has a power of its own, a power that can reshape dialogues and force bigger players to adjust their behavior. That is the beauty of bold action. It multiplies its influence by igniting courage in others, but the ripple effect is not only global, it is also generational. The choices made at one moment in history do not end with that moment. They define the path for decades to come. India's stand planted the seed of a stronger, more self-reliant identity, one that continues to shape its role in the world today. The price may have been isolation at first, but the reward was recognition and respect in the long run. And this is a powerful reminder for all of us. The decisions you make today will echo into your future, creating opportunities or limitations depending on whether you act with fear or with courage. In our own lives, the ripple effect is just as real. If you decide to commit yourself to discipline, to resilience, to the pursuit of excellence, the impact will not just be felt in your immediate achievements. It will inspire those around you, your family, your friends, your colleagues. It will set an example that spreads beyond you. One act of courage, one bold choice, can transform not just your destiny, but also the lives of those who watch you. India's move was proof that courage resonates. Its bold stand not only reshaped its relationship with the United States, but also sent shockwaves through the global system. It demonstrated that power is not just about wealth, weapons, or alliances. True power is about conviction, about the willingness to act when it matters, and about the understanding that a single decision can echo across the world. The ripple effect of India's choice is still felt today, reminding us all that one bold act has the power to move history itself. Greatness is never defined by the absence of conflict. It is defined by what you do with conflict once it comes. The world often sees setbacks as failures, but in truth, setbacks are only raw material waiting to be shaped into strength. When India made the move that shook its relationship with the United States, the immediate result was tension, criticism, and broken trust. To some, this could have been the end of cooperation, the closing of doors, and the permanent creation of distance. But the deeper lesson here is that true leadership is about transforming resistance into resilience and adversity into advantage. That is exactly what India did, and it is exactly what every individual must learn to do in their own journey. At first, the conflict between the two nations seemed irreparable. India had acted in a way that challenged American expectations, and America responded with anger. The partnership appeared fractured, yet over time, something remarkable happened. Instead of collapsing under the weight of this strain, India stood firm. It weathered the storm, endured the hardships, and refused to compromise its dignity. That very act of endurance planted the seed for something stronger. Respect began to grow where hostility once stood, because the United States realized that India was not a nation that could be pressured endlessly. This transformation was not immediate, but it was inevitable. Strength, after all, always earns recognition, even from those who once opposed you. This process mirrors what happens in every person's life. Think about moments when you faced rejection, betrayal, or failure. At that point it may have felt like the end, like a door had been slammed shut forever. But if you chose to stay strong, to learn from the pain, to keep moving forward, you discovered something powerful. Those very setbacks became the foundation of your future success. People who once doubted you are forced to respect you when they see you rise again and again. Just like India, you prove that you are not defined by the blows you take, but by the strength you show after taking them. What makes this principle so important is that it reveals the secret to lasting influence. If India had chosen to apologize, to retreat, or to compromise its independence just to please America, it would have lost credibility. But by holding its ground, by turning conflict into a demonstration of sovereignty, it won something much greater than approval. It won respect. And respect lasts longer than friendship based on convenience. Respect is the foundation of true partnership, because it is built not on dependency, but on equality. In life, too, the same truth applies. People will not value you if you constantly bend to please them. They may use you, they may like you for a moment, but they will not respect you. Real respect comes when you are unshakable, when you refuse to compromise your deepest values, when you stand tall even in the face of pressure. That is how you transform conflict into strength, not by avoiding it, not by pretending it isn't there, but by embracing it as an opportunity to prove who you really are. India's move that initially created division eventually became the very reason for a stronger relationship in the long run. Why? Because strength attracts strength. America, over time, came to see India not as a follower, but as a partner worthy of engagement. What began as conflict ended as respect. This is the ultimate lesson for all of us. The struggles you endure today may seem like obstacles, but they are actually shaping the foundation of a future where you stand taller, stronger, and more respected than ever. That is the power of turning conflict into strength. It is about refusing to be broken, about refusing to surrender, and about proving through your resilience that you are destined not just to survive the storms, but to emerge from them unshaken and unstoppable. Ladies and gentlemen, what we have seen in this journey is more than just a story about nations. It is a story about courage, about independence, about resilience, and about the power of one decisive move. India's choice, the move that shattered its relations with the United States, was not simply a diplomatic act. It was a declaration of strength, a reminder that greatness is never given, it is earned. The boldness to act even in the face of overwhelming opposition is what defines true leadership. The willingness to stand by your national interest even when it collides with the desires of the powerful is what defines true sovereignty. The endurance to pay the price, to bear the criticism, to walk alone if necessary, is what transforms weakness into strength. And the ripple effects of such actions remind us that one bold step can echo across continents, inspiring others and reshaping the course of history. But above all, the ability to turn conflict into resilience, to transform setbacks into stepping stones, is what ensures that temporary struggles lead to lasting respect. India's journey shows us that adversity is not the end. It is the beginning of a new chapter, one written in strength and dignity. And so, whether we look at the destiny of nations or at our own personal lives, the lesson is the same. Do not fear conflict, do not fear sacrifice, and do not fear standing alone. Instead, embrace the challenge, because it is through struggle that greatness is born. Just as India rose through boldness, so too can each of us rise. By daring to act, by holding firm to our values, and by proving to ourselves and to the world that we are stronger than the storms we face. That, my friends, is the power of one move.